Clyde, we set this up before the podcast, and I said I had an opening and that it was a visual opening. And so I guess this might make it to social media, but it won't be great for the audio. So to handle that for this cold open, I would like you to please describe what I'm doing in this cold open. This is a little game of charades. And your quest is to figure out what character on this episode of Survivor, Season 48, Episode 5, I am. You ready? And you're going to narrate what I'm doing and then make a guess. You ready?
Yeah, I'm all set. So Jack has a whole carton of whole milk that he has brought to the podcast recording studio that he is downing as we speak.
It's 2%. It's 2%.
It's 2%. I don't want that 2% crap. That's what David says in the episode. But this is, the closest thing that we'll get to your best David impersonation. I cannot believe that you ran out of your room to go get a prop, and that was just the milk out of your fridge.
I'll be right. I'm going to go put it back in my fridge. 1 second.
Oh, okay. Well, as Jack is putting his milk back in his fridge, I can run the intro here. Welcome to Survivor Analytics. My name is Clyde. I'm the true expert. With me, as always, is Jack. He is the voice of the people. He's only seen the seasons of Survivor that we have covered on the podcast. Jack, how is it going?
That's the most milk I've drunk in a long time. That's my fiance's milk. I drink oat milk. We'll see how far I get into the podcast before that hits me, but I'm doing well. Listen, that's a lot of milk. Here's what I'll say. Milk jokes aside, this is the most emotional I have ever been watching an episode of Survivor.
I'm surprised by that because you're typically the guy that hops on here week to week and says, I don't care about these emotional moments between the players. I don't care about the family visit. Like, why did this episode hit for you specifically?
Because here's the thing. I don't care about the family visit. I don't care about the letters from home. Guess what? That's what you signed up for. It's Survivor. This wasn't that. This was Eva overcoming remarkable adversity, being incredibly vulnerable, not only in front of people, in front of cameras, in front of, national television, in a game where her background, her way of interacting with the world could be used against her in the game. She was not only incredibly tough, but incredibly vulnerable and open. Joe, as well, gets a ton of credit from me for his response and care and kindness, right? It's just one of the most beautiful moments ever captured on television, not just reality TV, but it was so sweet and really got me. It got me emotional until Jeff started crying, and then I started thinking about Jeff as the Tin Man and some producer having to go put tears in his eyes.
Okay. You didn't buy the Jeff tears?
It's a little cynical, but I didn't.
When Jeff cried, that's when it hit me for sure.
Really?
I needed the Jeff signal to, hit my own emotions. Yeah, to feel anything. But honestly, the thing that really hit me this week was the whole discussion of parents of people with autism.
Sorry, really quick. Jeff said, come on in, guys, to your emotions.
Yeah, he did. I just thought it was really interesting that we not only had this moment to highlight that community of people with autism, but also talking about their surrounding families. So just kind of broadening the scope to think about how can other people in the family unit, in the household, but also the surrounding community can help those people with autism. And I think on this cast, it was just great seeing how supportive everybody was of Eva. And that's not just Joe, but everyone on Eva's, I'm blanking on what tribe she's on. She's on Logi still, right?
I don't know. That's what I would be asking you.
Yeah, I think it's still Logi, but all the other Logi players are very supportive and kind to her when they go back to camp. I'll be interested to see how that saga impacts the game long term. I think it will have an impact in some capacity, and that's something that we can talk about later on in the podcast. Yeah. But one take that I kind of wanted to open the episode with was, I think this might be the best pre-merge of the new era. I feel like these 5 episodes have hit on every front that I could expect. Casting wise, this is a great cast, a wide range of characters here, multiple people on this cast that I could see coming back in the future. I think players like Joe, like Eva, like Thomas, like Say, will all be considered down the line for a potential returning spot. So cast has been great. The gameplay has been really intriguing. We got a tribe swap, which we rarely see in these new era seasons, so you had a shift in the dynamics. And the tribal councils themselves have been very entertaining. We've had one successful shot in the dark, one successful idol play, and blindsides that actually feel like blindsides. I didn't expect Thomas to go home when he did. I didn't expect Kevin to go out in episode 2. I didn't think Bianca was getting voted out this week until she told Cedrek about her lost vote right before tribal council.
God.
So I've been really happy with Survivor 48 so far.
I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I think with the exception of the pizza boot, shout out to Pizza for sending us the TikTok of him making cannolis. But with the exception of that unfortunate, production bungling, it has been a really good season so far. Challenges are okay. Characters, like you said, are great. I don't know if I would consider Say for a returning player because,
I disagree with you. I think Say's the most likely returnee here. Fun fact for you. Say leads the season in confessionals right now with 42. And second place is Kyle with 24. She is by far, in a way, the main character of Survivor 48.
See, I guess this gets into an ideological difference between what makes a good character and a good player. Because she's a good character, I don't think she's a good player. But I can see production wanting to bring back a good character. Oh, what an episode. All right, should we jump in?
Yeah, we can start with the Vula tribe. The episode opens with them walking back from tribal council. Thomas was just voted out through Kyle's idol play, and Kyle says the episode title very early on. He says that it was a masterclass in deception. I thought this was kind of strange because when they go back to camp, Kyle and Camilla are trying to keep on this image of them not working together. And I don't see how that would ever be successful. Like, they just voted together in that tribal council and they used an extra vote. So I think that alliance is public knowledge at this point. But, credit to them for that move. I still feel like Camilla gets more credit for that play in the edit, even though Kyle was the one who actually used the idol.
I think that this alliance is downplayed by, or the future of this alliance is downplayed in the episode by Vula's bonding later on in the episode, because and we'll get to it when we get to it. I think there are deeper relationships that form, and so that deception might not even be relevant going forward. But we really don't see anyone else talk about, oh, these two are an alliance, right? We're not seeing Joe and Shaheen talk about it. When they come back, right, and Shaheen is bummed because apparently Thomas was his number one, which was kind of a surprise to me. I knew they were allies, but...
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
Sometimes you get somebody saying something in confessional like that, and you're like, did you tell anybody this before now? Like, are you revealing the secret after the fact, and now production is having to scramble?
Because Thomas definitely did not consider Shaheen his number one ally. Like, that was always Bianca.
Yeah. When they're sitting around at camp, right, we're not seeing Kyle and Camilla even really... They're not shunning each other, but they are really kind of just neutral. So they're still maintaining it, and we're not getting any confessionals suspiciously responding to that. But yeah, I think it's something to keep an eye on, but we could honestly even cover it now.
Yeah, I'm down. Just cover all the Vula content.
Yeah. After the challenge, the reward challenge, Vula gets second, right? And so they get some pastries back at camp. Everybody starts talking about how Survivor is hard, but what their parents and grandparents went through is harder, right? Shaheen's parents were refugees. Camilla's father dealt with a civil war in Guyana. I'm assuming in Guyana because she's Guyanese. Joe's grandparents were sharecroppers. His grandfather was a sharecropper, and his parents were dating during Jim Crow, and they have photos from an interracial couple, and there's photos of his parents when they were dating in front of segregated water fountains, right? A lot of really heavy stuff. And so they're all going, man, we all come from these really resilient, uplifting backgrounds, inspiring backgrounds maybe is the better word. And they feel a stronger bond. We get a confessional of Camilla where it's moved her to tears, and she's like, I don't want to vote these people out. I want to work with them. I hope that is the case. I would love to see, now that we know next week is Mergatory, a Joe, Shaheen, Kyle, Camilla, Eva alliance. Like, that's a lot of power right there. That's some of the best physical players in the game, some of the best social players in the game.
I think some of the best strategic players in the game, too. And I think we talked about this earlier in the season, but the best alliances are the ones that start with platonics, not tactics. You want to have that emotional connection, that foundation before you start working together strategically. If you can do that, then it's a lot more difficult for your allies to later stab you in the back. If your connection is purely based on we have a mutual person that we want to get rid of, then that's a short-term relationship.
Yeah.
My advice for anyone that's watching Survivor this season is that if you want to make a winner pick, I'm feeling really confident that the winner of this season will come from this group of 4. Joe, Shaheen, Kyle, Camilla. And I think they have that foundational connection now to run the rest of the post-merge. Kyle and Camilla are connected to the original Siva tribe. They can kind of play both sides that way. Joe still has Eva as his number 1 ally. And the Joe dynamic is the one that I'm most excited for to see play out long term because we know Joe is this physical beast, right?
Yeah.
But he's someone that seems to play a bit with his heart. Once he feels connected to another person, he's going to want to ride with them for the long run.
Yeah.
And there will come a point in this season where Joe will need to decide either between someone in this group of 4 or Eva, who he aligned with on day 1. I don't know how he'll handle that decision, but I'm excited to see it all eventually play out.
Me too. I mean, I think the other thing that makes this really exciting is that these characters, these players that could run the game going forward are 2-1 really likable.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't think any of them are like characters or playing villains or they have some negative personality trait that's coming out. They are all just genuine people that I'm happy to root for, that I like seeing them on screen. And that makes a big difference for me personally because I'm very judgy. And so it's a lot more fun to watch a show where I want to cheer for people, right? And I would be happy with any of these people winning at this stage, if it's a good win, obviously. That's Vula. Do you want to move on?
Yeah. Want to do reward challenge next?
Yeah. We got 2 challenges this week, guys.
Ugh.
Isn't that great? You know, they're still fairly generic challenges, but there's still 2 challenges. So the first one is this reward challenge. Winning team gets to go to Sanctuary, where good things happen, for pastries, sandwiches, coffee, tea, and second place gets some pastries and sandwiches and coffee and tea back at their camp. Bianca, when everybody comes in, is shocked to see Thomas gone because this has thrown off the rest of her game. That's okay. Her game will only last another 50 minutes. The challenge is a few layers of ball-based dexterity, throwing sandbags at this screw mechanism that is kind of cool to release balls, bouncing the balls into another thing, then racing and throwing some more balls. But worth noting, Say and Charity sit, especially worth keeping an eye on the sitters now after we know that when Star and Camilla sat and conferred about the journey. So I think it's always worth noting who's sitting and if they're talking or not. Couple of notes from the challenge, very quick. Cedrek tries to bounce some balls here. Tries to bounce a ball. It manages to bounce back towards him off the trampoline, which isn't really possible because it's angled away from him, but he still finds a way. Jeff calls it an abysmal failure.
Cedrek responds to Jeff. He says, "Thanks, Jeff. He's just rolling with the punches." I really like Cedrek. I've grown to love him over the course of this pre-merge. He's someone that keeps stumbling his way into these power positions and making ridiculous decisions with those powers, but I'm having a lot of fun with him.
Cedrek feels like, I've never seen the show, but I feel like it was really popular with people of a certain age. The show Designated Survivor, which might have been on CBS. Do you know this show? Do you remember this show?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it before, though.
So the premise is really simple. When the president gives the State of the Union, all of Congress and all of the cabinet, right, all of the secretaries and vice president and all of that are all at the Capitol for the speech. One person is the designated survivor who is taken to a safe location, and it's usually some random secretary or attorney general or something who is in the line of succession for the presidency, but pretty far down, in case something horrible happens and the president and everybody else dies. And in the show, there's an explosion and everybody dies. And so this guy, Secretary of Agriculture or whatever, becomes the president. Just like that, right? That's Cedrek. He's like...
Where every week everybody is dying and Cedrek is left with all the cards in his hands.
Yeah, Cedric's like, whoa, wait a minute. I have the nukes? Oh, I guess I'll just keep Say around then. So that's Cedrek this week and every week, but he's the designated survivor. Anyway, Siva falls really far behind. I wrote down, is Say the problem? Logie wins, and then Vula wins their first challenge win of the season, which is pretty great. Mary is really excited and says, like, hey, this is a big deal for us. Even though we have some food, right? It's really good that we could get a win.
She rubs a little bit of salt in the wound. She says that we still have leftovers from the last reward, so it's great that we get a second one.
I mean, a little bit, but think about Mary saying this as somebody who spent the first week of Survivor constantly in danger and miserable without fire.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is not coming from a place of sore winning. And Say is immediately a sore loser and is like, you didn't need to rub it in.
She says that Mary needed to win with a bit more tactfulness.
Yes. Immediately somebody says, it might be Charity actually, that Say is a sore loser, and it gets caught in the subtitles because it's not loud enough to be picked up by the mic. I wrote down, already feels like Say is going home this week. Her new tribe hates her, which bad read on my part, but it kind of felt like it was going that way.
That's kind of Say's storyline the entire season. She's always getting targeted. I have some more stats on that we can hit on later, but I want to say here that this edit of 48 continues to highlight this dynamic between Mary and Say. They're rivals in the early game. Right before the swap, they agreed to work together, and now when they're on separate tribes, they're still bickering at the end of the challenge. So who knows what happens between the two of them, but if they decide to realign at the Mergatory, this saga might be good for them. No one's going to expect Mary and Say to reconnect at this stage of the game. So
listen, I don't think Mary and Say are expecting to work together again. I don't know if Say understands the concept of building a bridge. I think Say drives over bridges and goes, these are very burnable. Like,
are you serious? She's built the strongest bridge in the game. Cedrek would die on a hill for Say, and he's done so multiple times.
But I don't think she's done anything to earn that on camera. Like, the closest thing we've seen to a bond between them is her yelling at him to help her chase Mary around when she was idol hunting.
And it works. I think you can take a lot of issues with Say's game, but I think the biggest positive for her from a strategic perspective is the fact that she's had Cedrek around her finger the entire time.
I don't think Say's in a position to build a bridge to anyone else, right? They made it to a new tribe where they are one of the majorities. They have an equal majority on this new tribe. And she's not trying to win people over. She's not trying to make new relationships. She's immediately pissed off Chrissy. Bianca's not crazy about her. Mitch doesn't like her, right? Mitch seems like the nicest guy on the planet. For him to not like you is a pretty big red flag.
Yeah, do you want to go to Logie at Sanctuary, and then we do Siva after?
Yeah, basically, big ol' spread, coffee, tea. There's just milk. Some would say that the milk is there to go in the tea and coffee. And David seems to think this milk is just for him. He loves milk so much that they play special music when he drinks the milk. It's whole milk, which he can tell by taste. I don't think I could tell the type of milk by taste.
You totally can. Between whole milk and 2%, it's a big difference. I think between like 2% and 1%, that I get. But whole milk is like a whole nother beast.
Here's the thing. I don't drink a lot of milk. That milk I drank at the top of the episode is not an indicative amount of milk for me to consume.
I don't know. You chugged that pretty quickly. It seemed like you've been practicing it for a bit.
That's going to go up on our socials, and my fiance is going to see that I drank from her carton that is like just her milk for coffee, and she's going to be very confused. Here's what I'll say. If you don't drink a lot of milk, I couldn't tell. The milk I just drank was 2%. Could have been whole milk. I couldn't tell. But if they were side by side, I think I could tell. Anyway, I basically have 2 notes here at Sanctuary. The first, everyone dunking on Say. Quote, "There's no such thing as sore winners, but there is such a thing as a sore loser." I think that was from Charity. So nobody likes Say on this other tribe. Worth keeping in mind going into Mergatory. And Eva doesn't trust Charity.
Yeah, Eva says in confessional that Charity just has a bad vibe. She doesn't think that Charity is authentic.
Yeah.
And that's kind of Charity's storyline for this entire season, where outside of Mitch, I don't know if there's a single person on this cast that genuinely wants to work with her.
No.
She was on the bottom of the original Siva tribe. If they go to a tribal council, she's more than likely voted out. She's on the bottom of this new Logi tribe. If they went to a tribal in this section of the game, I bet she gets voted out as well. I think Charity's right now the front runner to be the Mergatory boot of the season. She's my loser for the week, so I'll be going in more detail later on that. But I just wish we got a bit more intel on why exactly Eva doesn't trust Charity outside of, this notion that she's a little bit fake. I think when you look at Charity's game, it's very similar to Say's, where Say has that one ally on the island in Cedrek, and Charity only has Mitch. The key difference there is that Cedrek keeps finding himself in these power positions, and I don't really expect the same from Mitch.
I mean, I think there's another difference, though, which you famously are a Charity hater, right? People on Twitter despise you for how much you dislike Charity.
I don't dislike Charity. I'm just realistic with Charity. I don't think most people do not expect Charity to win the season.
No, it's very realistic. But here's the difference, I think, between Charity and Say. We've all seen what Say is doing wrong week to week, right? We've seen her making these comments, right? Burning bridges, being kind of short with people, and
eating too much fruit and pissing off Chrissy.
Yeah, she has joined this new tribe and gotten a reward and apparently eaten more than her fair share. She sits at the challenge and says it's because she's played every challenge. And Chrissy points out that most people have played every challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of insensitivity from Say. There's almost nothing negative from Charity. It's all vibe.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that might be worse. For Say, you can look at those strategic blunders, her social blunders on the season, and say, these are things that you can improve upon when you come back for Survivor 50, if she is selected, right? For Charity, what advice do you give Charity to improve in the future? There isn't a set mistake that she made on this season. It's kind of just her natural vibe. So it gives me less confidence in Charity on any random season. But
yeah.
Want to talk a bit about Siva and Say creating chaos over there?
Yeah, I mean, we've alluded to it, right? The Say taking up a lot of the reward fruit, sitting because she's tired. Everybody's tired. Everybody's played most of the challenges. Mitch calls Say a sinking ship, which I thought was interesting. I mean, we're getting negativity from one of the nicest guys on the cast, right?
Say's kind of burning her relationship with Mitch and Chrissy to the point where they now want to vote her out over Bianca, partially due to the fact that Thomas was taken out last week as well. But I can give you some Say statistics here.
Say statistics? Never mind.
Say statistics. Yeah, it doesn't really work too well.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Did you know that Say's name has been written down in every tribal council that she's attended this season, all 4 of them? She currently holds the record for most votes against her on 48 with 5. And we kind of hit on this earlier, where Say is someone that's constantly making these social blunders. If she was only targeted on the original Vula tribe, then you can make the argument that Say was just surrounded by people who she didn't initially connect with. Sometimes it's just a luck of the draw who you're assigned on the same tribe with. But now we have a larger sample size. Say's worked with Vula people, she's worked with Siva people, she's worked with Logi people, and none of them really get along with her outside of Cedrek. I think Say's a very interesting player to watch. I think she's super entertaining. She's someone that likes to play out in front, likes to take on that leadership role, but I don't know if that's the best long-term strategy in New Era Survivor. I feel like that only works if you're truly a magnetic personality that brings people together.
Yeah, you want to lead, not rule. That's how I would delineate it. It's wild that Say is still here, right? And it's wild that we keep getting these moments where everyone goes, "God, we gotta get rid of her. I don't want to work with her. Do you want to work with her? No, none of us want to work with her. Let's get rid of her." I have a question for you, which is, at this point in the episode, ahead of the immunity challenge, you're Bianca. You know that your number one in the game is out. You also know that you don't have a vote. You also know that you are the individual on a tribe of 5. It's a 2-2-1 split from the original tribes. In this interlude between challenges, do you go and try to befriend and bring over to your side? I'll tell you the wrong answer, which is Cedrek. But who do you think is the right answer?
I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer here. I feel like Bianca's strategy at this point in the episode should be, I'm going to play the middle. I'm going to tell the Siva people that I'll work with them. I'll tell the original Vula contestants that I'll work with their side. For Bianca, yes, she just lost Thomas, and there might be a little bit of urgency for her to create a new number one ally, and I think that's part of the reason why she leaks that information to Cedrek later in the episode. But if I'm Bianca, I'm in self-preservation mode. I just need to make it to the Mergatory. Like, historically, on these new era seasons, the Mergatory happens at the final 13. If I can just get through one more round, we'll all arrive on the beach, and then I can start really establishing new connections in the game. My goal at this stage of the episode would be running the middle and trying to force that 2-2 vote split, because if you have that split, you get a potential rock draw or some other scenario. But regardless, like, you're in a much safer position. So that would be my approach if I was Bianca. But we'll hit more on that crucial decision from her later in the episode. Want to go to the immunity challenge?
Guess what? It's another multi-stage challenge because everything has to be complicated in 2025. Worth noting, Star sits again. Star's sitting a lot for somebody with a athletic resume. And Cedrek sits as well. Vula wins very quickly. We get a moment of Say at the balance boards. We're skipping right to the balance boards. Nothing else interesting happens. Say is at the balance board trying to find a lead. Can't find it. Jeff says, Say now feeling the pressure for Siva. Say says, I'm not feeling any pressure. And Jeff says, you should be. Which is pretty great. And I like these little moments where I like to imagine that Jeff is like, come on, let's just get her out of here. Like she's too sassy.
You think Jeff wants Say gone?
I guess maybe not from a business perspective, but like, I have to imagine after running several tribals with Say, including the longest one in Survivor history, right? Pizza's was the longest in history. I've got to imagine Jeff is a little sick of her. Imagine being the teacher at the head of the class, right? And you have Say and Mary fighting in the front row of your class for 45 minutes or whatever. And then you're like, all right, go home, guys. Neither of you got eliminated. And they come back again and again and again, right? I can imagine if I was Jeff, I would be vexed by that.
Yeah, I think that's superseded by, his eyes set on the cash prize. The longer Say sticks around, the more entertaining moments you'll get on the television. And even though people are constantly targeting and going after Say, I do think she's still respected on this cast. If Say somehow makes it to the final tribal, which I do not expect at all right now, I could see her winning a jury vote. Because even her biggest rivals on the cast, like Mary, don't want to work with her, but they respect her enough to the point where I think she would consider voting for Say in the end.
Mary does. I don't think people on her new tribe would. I don't see a Mitch recognizing Say's game. You don't call someone a sinking ship and then vote for them.
But the thing is, she's been a sinking ship for a month. Like, we reach a certain point where I don't think the ship is actually sinking.
It's got a lot of water in it, and you're like, well, this is just how the boat runs. But, okay, so just to touch again on the most heartwarming moment of Survivor history, as far as I'm concerned, Eva at the balance boards starts to have what she calls an episode where she essentially is overwhelmed and panicking. She is really struggling to balance the ball. She's struggling to make it work. She is crying and kind of in very severe distress, right? She manages in that overwhelmed state to turn it around, to collect herself enough to finish the challenge and win the game for her tribe. Once she keeps it together enough to make that happen, the floodgates open and she sort of has this breakdown. Joe, throughout, as she's freaking out, is over with his tribe, just looking heartbroken that he can't kind of cross the line and go over, which did make me think of, oh gosh, the Applebee's freak out lady. She goes over and helps Kenzie.
Yeah, she does help Kenzie.
I don't remember her name, though.
Can you tell me the season?
46?
It is 46. You're thinking of Liz Wilcox.
Liz.
4th place finisher on 46, loses in fire making, and then tells Kenzie, Charlie, and Ben that she would have beaten all of them in the end.
Delusional Liz crossed these lines, right? But Joe has respect for the game, and he waits until Jeff sort of suggests that he goes over. Goes over, helps her settle down. It's incredibly powerful and sweet. Eva then, once she's collected herself, explains to everybody in the game that she has autism, that she's overcome all of this incredible adversity, right? To make it to the point she has today and won the challenge. It's fantastic.
It's a really cool moment. One of the standout memories from the new era. I'll see some people online saying that, what is this? This is not the Survivor that I know. To them, I'll say, come on, get a life. Like,
yeah.
Survivor, at its core, has always been a show that is a social strategy game, but they also hit on real life topics throughout, the entire history. If you go back to some of the very, very early seasons, in the first season of the show, you had a gay man, which was, unheard of in the year 2000, talking to the other contestants about his sexuality. You had another contestant on there who had multiple kids with different partners, and he was talking about that experience, which was kind of taboo at the time. So I feel like Survivor, yes, it is this social strategy game, but it's also a time capsule of what are some of the bigger social and societal topics at hand. And I think inclusion of people of different abilities is something that we're focusing more now on as a society. So it makes sense for it to come up in Survivor as well. With the Joe segment, I really like this alliance between Joe and Eva. I think the best alliances in Survivor, but also in real life, are the ones where you're both learning from each other.
Sorry, those are just called friendships in real life, Clyde. I know you're deep in Survivor.
I call them all alliances. Joe is obviously learning a lot from Eva, both with how to work with someone who has autism, but also learning from someone that's significantly younger than him. Joe's kids are going to grow up and be Eva's age, and I feel like he's learning a lot from that experience. And Eva's also getting a lot from Joe, with him obviously comforting her during the challenge. So I really like this alliance. I am a bit worried, though, with how public it is now. Joe definitely made the right call in going and helping Eva in that moment, but they are clearly presented now as the tightest duo on the entire cast. Eva tells everybody else that Joe was the only person who she revealed her autism diagnosis to. And there will come a point in the season where that pair will become a threat. And I'll be honest, if I'm on the island, I'd have a really, really difficult time just ethically walking up to a castaway and saying, we got to cut Joe and Eva though, right? Because strategically, you got to do it. But I'd be so worried not only with the perception on the island of that move, but also just the blowback from the larger Survivor community with that. So how do you feel like this is going to impact the game moving forward?
I mean, it's a really tricky thing. Neither Eva or Joe would ever say that they want this relationship and this dynamic and Eva's experience to be the reason they make it far or win the game. Absolutely not. But there is a level of, if you're somebody else on the island, you're in this panopticon where you're being watched all the time. You're on national TV right now. At some point, someone is going to have to say, we have to go after them. They are a strong duo. They're incredibly capable physical players. They have great social play. They have a lot of allies. I mean, what we'll get to here in a moment is Eva has an idol, too. They are in an incredible position on this cast. So someone's going to have to go after them. And it will be because they are a strategic force, not because of anything else. And I just hope that when it happens, when this showdown inevitably comes to pass, that everybody involved, both on the show and in the audience, I know not the entire audience will be sensitive because it's America in 2025. I hope everybody will do their best to just take a moment to recognize that these are great players and not get wound up about like anything being mean-spirited or targeted or unfair because of Eva's autism. Especially for Eva's sake. Eva's what, 21, 22?
Yeah, she's the youngest person on the cast right now.
Yeah, I think she's in college, and she certainly doesn't deserve to like have people on the internet yelling at her for like weaponizing her life experience to win the game or to go far in the game. And I'm sure somebody is doing it. So hopefully Eva's got some pretty tight social media filters on.
Joe and Eva are competitors at their core. Joe is a former UCLA football player. Eva is on the guys' hockey team at her college. Like, these are people who are on Survivor for the spirit of competition. So I don't think that Eva and Joe expect the rest of the cast to just say, oh yeah, we're not going to target you guys, just have a free ride to the final tribal. They want like an authentic, competitive experience here, which will come with them getting targeted at some point. So you want to talk about Logie and the Eva Star situation?
Yeah, so we have this really nice moment between Eva and Star where Star is basically like, you are incredible for what you are doing. And in the spirit of tribe bonds and relationship building, I want to tell you all, I have the beware advantage. Surprise. And they're all like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they all already knew about it.
Essentially, it's like, hey, can anyone crack this? I can't figure it out. Hands it over. And Eva, being the badass that she is, cracks it pretty quickly. Then, and this is wild, Star gives Eva the idol. What?
It's wild. Eva and Star have been gunning for each other the entire season. They've been rivals since day one. And at first, I hated this move. It's so risky to give your biggest rival on the cast an idol. But after thinking about it a little bit more, I don't hate it as much. I think there is some rationale for Star here. One, this idol is basically public knowledge already. She shared it with almost everyone on the original Logie tribe. She shared it with everyone on the swapped Logie tribe. So even though you have an idol, it also serves to paint a target on your back. I can understand from Star's perspective, I pass Eva this idol, the target's not on me anymore. Everyone's already looking at Eva, not only because of the big moment at the immunity challenge, but also because of this idol. Plus, Star doesn't have any allies in the game. The only people who she connected with before the swap were Thomas and Bianca, and both of them are now gone. So this is an opportunity for her to create some new inroads on the cast, which she will need in the post-merge. So there's some rationale for this move. I still don't know if I would do it just because I'm so scared of giving that idol to Eva out of all people. Like, I would like this more if Star passed it to someone else on that tribe.
It is kind of a, like, what, you're going to go after me? I just gave the idol to the girl who cracked it and who's super nice and everyone likes her now. I just gave a present to the most beloved player, not a character, she's a human, player on this show. I think there's something to that. It is insane, though.
I just wish we got more of an explanation from Star. She says that she wants Eva to have it because Eva was the one that cracked the code. She, quote-unquote, deserves it. But maybe there was more strategic thought for Star going into that decision, and we just didn't see any of it. So Siva is going to Tribal Council. We can hop over to their tribe. And this is where we get Bianca's downfall. It's initially looking like a 2-2 split between Say and Chrissy. Bianca is in the middle. She doesn't have a vote. But if this goes the way she expects it to, she'll be safe at Tribal Council.
What she says out loud in confessional is, I'm going to play off both sides. They're going to think they have the numbers. I won't vote. It'll be a tie break, and my name won't be on the ballot.
The only risk for her in that scenario is that if they get to a deadlock, I think she still needs to draw a rock.
But that's her best chance. And she knows, by going with this strategy, when she gets back to camp, she's going to have to do some explaining and have a target on her back, right? She's really, really banking on making the mergatory and getting to a point where she can find some new numbers and get back to some of her old tribe mates. Also worth noting, pretty quick before the vote, Bianca and Cedrek talk about Say. And Bianca says, oh, do you see yourself working with Say in the future? And Cedrek is very ambivalent. He's diplomatic, right? But he's telling someone who he thinks is voting with him that he's not crazy about their third vote partner. He will not commit to working with Say in the future.
For me, though, like, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
And Cedrek has proven time and time again his loyalty to Say.
So here's how last minute this moment is between Bianca and Cedrek. They've all shot their little slow-mo, I'm going to look cool before I go into tribal, right? The slow-mo has been shot. They are all dressed up, right? Cedrek is wearing his blazer that for some reason he dragged to the island and has gotten disgusting. And then she's like, listen, you got to keep this quiet, but I don't have a vote. Please don't tell anybody. What good does this do?
I thought about this for a little bit. I think from Bianca's perspective, there's a couple factors going into this decision. One is the alliance component. She doesn't want to go back to camp after tribal council and have all these people pissed at her because she didn't tell them that she didn't have a vote. She just lost Thomas, and she's kind of desperate to get that new connection on the cast. So that's probably factoring in here. Also, I think Bianca wants Say out of the game because when she tells Cedrek this information, she says, since I don't have a vote, I need you to flip on Say here. So I think she was very focused on cutting Say and then setting herself up as Cedrik's new number one ally. Once again, everyone wants to work with Cedrek. I don't really know why, but they love hanging out with, what's he, a butt doctor?
Oh, yeah, I think he is.
He's a gastroenterologist or something like that. So then let's say you're Cedrek. You just get this information from Bianca right before tribal council. And there's a ton of different paths that Cedrek can go with this. He can just stick with the initial vote, force a tie, 2 on Say, 2 on Chrissy, and who knows what happens from there. I think that's the riskiest move for Cedrek at this stage of the game, just because you don't know what's going to happen with that tiebreaker. Option number 2 for Cedrek is that he can follow Bianca's wishes and cut Say. And to be honest, I think that's probably the right move for him. Say has proven time and time again that she's the type of player that's naturally going to have a target on her. Do you really want to go into the post-merge aligned with her where if Say wins immunity and people want to weaken Say, they're all going to look at Cedrek? The con with that decision of cutting Say is that you lose who Cedrek considers his number one ally, even though Say doesn't reciprocate those feelings. So this was an opportunity for Cedrek to press the reset button, get rid of Say, and build up this alliance with Chrissy, Mitch, and Bianca, who all want Say out of the game. The other realistic option for Cedrek is just voting out Bianca. I don't hate this move for him. I get that his relationship with Say is pretty turbulent, but Bianca is someone that he just met a couple days ago. So I can understand having some hesitation of cutting Say, who you've known for 10 days, for Bianca, who you just met. But once he decides to get rid of Bianca, the part that made no sense to me this week was the votes that Cedrek assembles for this plan. Like, if you're Cedrek, who do you want to get on your side to cut Bianca? You can pull in Mitch, Say, Chrissy. Who's your pick out of those 3?
I mean, if you're Cedrek, right, and you're wanting to shore up and lock down your alliance with Say, you're not going to eliminate Say. You bring Say in on your plan.
100%. Yep.
That's what you do. You do the straightforward thing. I didn't actually catch this. Who did he bring in?
He brings in Chrissy. Chrissy's the other vote against Bianca.
It's crazy.
Chrissy is the person who we have the least screen time of connecting with Cedrek. Cedrek relates with Mitch over their experiences with stutters. This was a chance for Cedrek to turn that personal connection into a strategic one.
And that's a really nice moment too. I mean, that's one of the better bits of like personal connection we see from any of the original Vula members.
With Say and Cedrek too, the last time they went to tribal council, that was the pizza guy boot. That was the round where Cedrek flipped on Say, then did a takesy-backsy and cut the pizza guy. There's no way Cedrek believes that his alliance with Say is 100% stable. There has to be some disruption after that last tribal. So this was a chance for him to rebuild that relationship, and he doesn't do it. I don't understand why he pulls in Chrissy. Maybe this is some kind of intricate split vote from Cedrek where he pulled Chrissy and Mitch into it, and they thought that maybe Bianca has an idol. Bianca said in her exit interview that she was watching Cedrek like a hawk the entire day after telling him that information. So maybe for Cedrek, Chrissy was the only person that he could get the time to pull aside and explain what's going on at tribal council. So maybe it was a logistical thing, but the fact that he decides to rope in Chrissy out of all people makes no sense to me. And I'm excited to hear his explanation either next week or postseason.
Well, let me put forward a scenario and interpretation because it's a bizarre move. We said that his two options were to go for Say or go for Bianca, right? Go for Say with Mitch and Chrissy or go for Bianca with Say. Maybe what this is Cedrek establishing that he doesn't want to work with Say in the future, but he doesn't want to vote her out. And he wants to build a new, a relationship. He recognizes, okay, we've trimmed someone from one of the big remaining tribes. Former Loggy is down another member. And at the same time, I'm cozying up to former Siva by working with Chrissy, that powerhouse of former Siva, the social hub of the tribe, Chrissy.
Your winner pick, Chrissy.
My winner pick, who, hey, she made the merge. Almost.
Yeah, better than my two winner picks.
Yeah.
I had Stephanie preseason. She went out episode 1, and then Thomas, who went out episode 3. I'm on my last pick with Joe right now.
Joe, okay. That's the only thing I can think of is that it's a Cedrek going forward wants to be with the former Sivas. I don't think it's super realistic. He's now got Say pissed at him. And if we know one thing, it's that if Say doesn't like you, she will make it known. Everybody on this island knows that Say doesn't like Mary and Mary doesn't like Say. If Say's got a problem with Cedrek, she's going to make it really loud in the Mergatory.
It's such a strange vote. It's the second time this season where Cedrek has simultaneously saved Say and blindsided Say in the same tribal council.
Yeah.
Maybe in Cedrik's mind, he's only focusing on the building of connections as opposed to the destruction of them. So he feels like me and Say work together on the Vula tribe. We're already set. I don't need to worry about that relationship in this tribal. Me and Mitch are already connected on a personal level. I don't need to worry about him in this tribal either. But Chrissy, we haven't had much in common. This is my chance to have that first step with Chrissy. But in the process, he's burning the other two people. So
yeah, it's true. Just another thing to note from the tribal, Say misspells Chrissy's name as well. So I don't know if you recall, I think I said this maybe in episode 1 of this season, that when Say goes home, her name will be misspelled. She's misspelled multiple people's names now at Tribal Council, which feels like she knows that I'm watching.
Quick highlight for me from Tribal Council. Say says that the best players can navigate their way into the cracks of alliances. I thought that was a nice callback to Bianca's confessional last week, where she talked about how she just arrived at that Siva camp and she was looking for the cracks, and she successfully found the cracks, and she still blew up her own spot. Can I read the vote?
Please.
It's a 2-1-1. 2 votes on Bianca, 1 on Chrissy, 1 on Say. Bianca is taken out of the game. This wasn't a major shock for me. I felt like Bianca was one of the more invisible characters on the cast, and more often than not, when we saw Bianca on screen, she was talking about her alliance with Thomas. So once Thomas was out of the game, it made sense that Bianca would follow in his footsteps. With that said, I bet the Ponderosa squad was having a great time. You had Stephanie, you had Kevin, you had Pizza Guy, you had Thomas and Bianca. It's also funny that Pizza Guy was voted out because he lost Cedrek's trust by not telling him that he lost his vote, while Bianca lost Cedrek's trust by telling him that she lost her vote. So there's no winning with Cedrek, but were you sad to see Bianca go?
She was in a tough spot, right? If Bianca made the Mergatory, she's floundering, right? She's hoping that her former tribe mates, the California girls who remain, take her back. She's not really done anything. She gets her vote back. That's good, but that's about it. It was going to be a really tough uphill climb for her. And because of that, I'm not too beat up about her being gone. That's kind of harsh, but her storyline was going to get really convoluted, and it just keeps the season a little cleaner and easier to remember for somebody like me who doesn't remember a lot of things about the season already.
Want to do winners and losers?
Yeah, let's do it. Who's your loser?
Loser, I said earlier, it's Charity. We get even more content this week, just dunking on Charity and emphasizing the fact that no one wants to work with her. Historically, your mergatory boot is someone that nobody gets along with. You have 13 people all rolling up to the same beach, and they're just looking for an easy target. Every person has their own agenda, their own connections, their own strategies, but you only get like 36 hours until you need to vote someone out. Let's just cut a person that doesn't destroy anyone's individual game. That's kind of the history of this boot. In 47, that was Rome, who did not get along with most people on the cast. In 46, that was Mariah, who was left out of the gem vote in her last tribal council. So she's on the bottom of her tribe, and then she gets cut at the mergatory. And then in 44, we famously have Josh, the guy who lied about being a personal trainer. That caused him to lose trust with the cast, and he was voted out in that round. So just based on what the edit is showing us, I think Charity's going to be the mergatory boot. And some people might not like me for it, but that's what I think.
I mean, here's the thing. People on Twitter love to hate on Clyde for his realistic depiction of Charity. Because let's be honest, Charity's in this weird spot. She hasn't done anything notably positive strategically. She hasn't really done much notably negative. But there's still this lurking impression of her as a untrustworthy player. And impressions matter a lot in a game based on trust. Certain people on Twitter who are big Charity fans for some reason might not like that, but I think it's very fair and realistic.
Is she your loser as well?
Nope, my loser's Cedrek, because what is he doing? He's about to go into a mergatory where there are 2 people left from his old tribe who he made promise that they would stop fighting, and they sort of fought this week from across different tribes.
Right? Oh, yeah.
If they fight, what's he going to do, right? He can't actually do anything to make them stop fighting. Say's going to be pissed that she was lied to or kept out of the loop in this vote. She's going to be pointing a loud finger at him. He doesn't have any strong relationships. And if there's like a mature alliance between Chrissy and Cedrek, where's that going to go? Not far. His inconsistent game, his truly confounding decision-making at every stage of the season, and honestly, just my frustration at his decision-making makes him my loser.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the cycle with Cedrek this season is he meets new people, they immediately love him, and then he screws them over for the purpose of helping Say's game.
Yeah.
He did that on his original tribe. He did that in the swap section of the game. But there's still people on this cast who have yet to meet Cedrek. So I'm excited for the mergatory to see the cycle happen all over again, where he rolls up to the beach and you have people like David saying, this Cedrek guy seems pretty cool. We should hang out sometime. Maybe we can go.
They're going to bond over milk.
Yeah, we can go grab a glass of milk together, after the show. And then Cedrik's going to screw him over to help Say. So
yeah, Cedrek is actually going to be, the foreman of the jury at the final tribal. And it's going to come down to his vote, and he's going to pick somebody he's never spoken to. He's going to make an arbitrary choice at the end of the game, and that will dictate who gets $1 million.
Because you normally have, 7, 8 people on the jury? My guess is that the way the numbers end up working out is that 2 people are really competing to win the season, and it comes down to Cedrik's jury vote, and he votes for, the 3rd person, like the Ben or the Sue in 47, just to create even more chaos. That'd be the perfect way to end it all. My winner for this week is Eva. Pretty straightforward, powerful moment at the immunity challenge, but it's not strictly based on my personal bias in favor of Eva. She also got an idol straight up handed to her by her biggest rival on the cast. So pretty great week for her.
Yeah. I mean, same. How could you possibly fault Eva in this moment? I'm excited for the mergatory, get Eva back together with Joe. I can see Eva and Camilla bonding, right? If the Joe, Shaheen, Camilla, Kyle thing actually lasts, there's a lot of strength ahead. And we see in the next time on some allusions to the meat boys of the island working together. So
I will say the one downside with Eva's game is that I do think she is way more dependent on Joe than Joe is dependent on her. I don't think Joe would ever cut her because of those other connections.
No.
But it's still a little bit of a red flag where if the rest of Joe's alliance says, we need to get rid of Eva, that way you're closer to us, I don't know if Eva has the relationships outside of Joe to put up a fight.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Dishonorable. Do you have one?
Yeah, dishonorable mention goes to Survivor 50 casting.
Okay.
So we're getting more and more information coming out this week about the cast of Survivor 50. And I initially expected it to be around 40 to 50% new era, which has its pros and cons. These are people who are fresher in the minds of Survivor fans, but you also have contestants from old school seasons, and this might be their last opportunity to really compete. Instead, production's only going to bring back 3 new era players, which feels really small given the number of new players on the board. We're going to have 9 seasons to potentially pull from. On top of that, some contestants have went on social media to say that, oh, I was cut from 50, I didn't make it to the next round. 2 of those players are some of the biggest names of the new era. One of them is Jesse, who was on Survivor 43. You didn't meet Jesse because he competed in the season right before we started the podcast. But the other is Carolyn, which is a shock. I know you're not the biggest Carolyn fan, but I thought she was a absolute lock to come back for 50. So I'm a little bit worried with what production is doing with these casting decisions if they're not bringing on some of the obvious choices like Carolyn and Jesse.
I mean, I just hope it's Jam Jam then. So 3 people from the new era. There's 18, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
1/6 of the players, it's what, 13%? 13% of the cast of 50 will come from 20% of the past seasons.
Yeah.
So that's a mismatch.
And it's a mismatch like statistically, but it's also a mismatch when you consider the fact that all of the other players pre-new era had a season where they had an opportunity to get called up for a return.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm hoping at some point down the line they run like a new era All-Stars to make up for the fact that you have so many people not getting that chance.
Is it all returning players?
For 50, yeah.
From a business standpoint, right? And I hate that I'm about to play devil's advocate for the business side of Survivor because the business side of Survivor ruins challenges and adds the journey and blah, 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 right? But from the business side of Survivor, what I hear more than anything when I tell people I do a Survivor podcast, right? I hear 2 things more than anything. Why?
And is that show still on?
Well, and, I loved that when I was a kid or in the early 2000s. Like, I loved the classic era of the show. I hear that a lot. There's a bigger draw for nostalgia than anything else, right? And so I can see production saying, look, a lot of great players in the new era, but we want to bring in people from the old days because they're the ones who are going to bring back fans. And we want this to be for the people who have fallen off just as much as it is for the people who are still right here watching. I can see that logic. I could also see somebody on production saying, Carolyn just did that other show on our rival NBC, so why are we going to give her some time when she went to another network, right? Could see that. But I don't know. That's a little maybe too inside baseball. But yeah, that's a fair dishonorable mention. I know people were discussing it in our Survivor chat, and it didn't mean anything to me.
Well, it also bothers me a little bit too, because the name of the season is in the hands of the fans. Like, if this season is actually controlled by the fandom, why not let us vote on the contestants? They're giving us the chance to vote on all of these things that don't really matter that much, like the final immunity challenge and the colors of the tribes. Yeah. Like, the most important thing for a Survivor season, especially in the new era where we don't change locations, is the cast. So, yeah. I don't know.
Is that really the subtitle?
That's why they had the whole voting thing to begin with. That's like the gimmick for the season.
They should absolutely let at least some of the slots be voted on. Fans deserve a chance to feel like they are contributing to the interesting stuff. Well, my honorable mention, thank you for asking.
I'm excited for this. Quick side note to the fans. We were going to record this podcast on a Thursday, which is when we normally record this. Jack couldn't make it that day, so I said, okay, we'll record it on a Friday, but you need to come with a great honorable mention, an all-time honorable mention. So with that in mind, Jack, the floor is yours.
The honorable mention goes to Joe. Because, listen, here's why it goes to Joe. Not only was it an incredibly sweet moment with him and Eva, there's a world, a darker timeline where Joe doesn't have the empathy. And Joe says, I got to keep this under wraps. I gotta play it cool. I'm on another tribe. It sucks to see this, but I'm just going to let Eva deal with this, right? Joe could have been cold, could have been selfish, and he wasn't. And in a time where I have genuinely seen people say, I mean, some very powerful people have said recently that empathy is like the weakness of Western civilization. That's like an actual thing humans have said, and not like a line from a supervillain in a movie, right? Very high-powered people in our current government have said empathy is a weakness of our civilization. Yeah. So I just think it is fantastic that we get this great reminder in a wonderful, sensitive, caring way that empathy is absolutely not a weakness, and it doesn't weaken Joe's game. It doesn't weaken Eva's game. It, if anything, builds their alliance. It made this game better. It made this season better. And that's just a great moment that deserves to be celebrated and is honestly like Hall of Fame Survivor moment for me. Like, full disclosure, I teared up at this moment. It was so sweet. I skip the letters from home. I skip the family visits when we do old seasons. I don't care. But this was an incredible moment and deserves to be celebrated for a long time. So
yeah, big shout out to Joe. I feel good with him being my winner pick.
Yeah.
On like a personal level, but also a strategic level. This week, fun fact, Joe did not get a single confessional, which feels a bit odd. Like, he plays such a large role in the storyline of the episode, but we never hear his thoughts behind the scene. That doesn't make a huge difference to me. I posted my tier list this week. Joe's still my number one winner prediction. And I had some people saying, like, how can you pick Joe after a 0-vote confessional episode? I think this one was a bit of an exception given the entire Eva situation. Like, we needed to hear more of Eva's perspective on this than we did from Joe, since, she was the one actually going through it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's everything for this week.
Next week is the Mergatory, so buckle up for the weird arbitrary. They're not merged, but they're kind of merged.
Should be a fun one. And if you haven't already, follow us on all of our social media platforms at Survivor Analytics. And if you want to hear me yap about Survivor for 3 straight hours, I just uploaded a podcast going through my ranking of every winning game in the history of the show. So that's all there for you to listen to.
If you struggle with clinical insomnia, don't worry. Doctors prescribe 3 hours of Clyde monologuing.
If you listen to this podcast and said, I really like this thing, but I could use a little bit less voice of the people, well, I have the thing for you.
If you like Survivor Analytics, but not Jack, go listen. All right. We'll see you next time.